Okay, it's time to call this house to order. We are here on October 29th at UCLA. It's a beautiful day in Los Angeles. Sunny. And we're here to debate the question that environmental concerns are more important than economic growth. Environmental concerns are more important than economic growth. On the affirmative, for the government, Jing. For the opposition, Shavin. Did I say it right? Okay. Okay. I'll call this House to order and recognize the leader of a government for a speech not to exceed 7 minutes in length. Come to the podium. You can sit down. No? Welcome to a communication class. Of course not. Stand at the podium there. Yes, that's the podium.
Hi, class. I'm going to briefly introduce my resolution today that the environmental concerns are more important than the economic growth. And firstly, I'm going to give out some resolutional analysis and definitions for the key terms. And firstly, the environmental concerns or the environmental issues refer to the harmful effect that human activity on the environment. And economic growth is usually measured as the percent rate of increase in real GDP as defined by the International Monetary Foundation in 2013. And the term more important is quite essential to this argumentation. If I prove that economic value is less important or at least equally important as the environmental issues, then I win this debate. The criteria for assessing truth will be a preponderance of evidence and quality of evidence in favor of the proposition. And secondly, we are going to see what is the problem. Saving the natural resources from the environment, or commonly called resource conservation, which is part of the environment protection for us and for the next generation, is more important than taking care of millions of people who are starving, which is the economic development. Because we have already wasted and destroyed vast amount of natural resources, and in doing so, we have put our Earth at risk. We must preserve the Earth for our children and grandchildren. In any case, poverty and environmental damage are often linked. Destroying the rainforest gives native people nowhere to live except go urban, go homeless. And also, the polluted water can also lead up to failures for farmers. And climate change will turn very good fields into desert and frequent floods. And also, pollution has costs. It makes no sense if we just focus on the development of economy if there is huge cost of the environmental issues. If the external costs still exist, such as pollution, the producer may choose to produce more of the product than would be produced if the producer were required to pay all the associated environmental costs. Because responsibility where self-directed action lies partly outside the self, an element of externalization is involved. And toxic pollution affects more than 200 million people worldwide, according to an organization called the Pure Earth. In some of the world's most polluted places, babies are born with defects naturally, and children have lost 30 to 40 IQ points once they are born in those heavily polluted areas, and life expectancy may be as low as 55 years because of cancer or other kind of severe diseases. Nearly 500 million Chinese lack access to safe drinking water. It is very terrible fact, but I have to say, according to a 2010 analysis, estimated that 1.2 million people died each year in China because of air pollution. The World Health Organization estimated in 2007 that the air pollution causes 500,000 deaths per year in India. And we come to the issue that how big is the problem? Anticipated effects of future climate change, including global warming temperature, rising sea levels, changing precipitation and expansion of the deserts. And warming is expected to be greatest in the Arctic, with a continuous threat.
Hold your paper a little lower so I can see your face, okay? Yeah.
With the threat of melting sea levels or the melting of glaciers. And after we see the very terrible truths, we have to think why we currently have this kind of problem. The first reason is that the development of nuclear science introduced radioactive contamination, which is a factor contributing to the pollution today. And secondly, a much more recently discovered problem is around the Great Pacific Patch, a huge concentration of plastics that is due to human behavior, and it's just because when the economy is well developed, a lot of people want to travel, and if they do not pay much attention to their behavior, they just throw their plastic bottles away. Or if there's not so well developed plans for how to deal with those kind of wastes, there will be risks for the environment. So what is the solution? Possible social responses to global warming, including mitigation by emission reduction, is introduced nowadays. Most countries are parties to a organization called United Nations Framework for Conversion on Climate Change. They have done some actions to stop this process or try to do something for the environment instead of just focusing on the economy or the economic growth. And will this solution work? I'm not saying that the environment, that the economic growth is not important. I just say when you are developing your nation's economy, you should pay attention to the associated environment effect. And we have to try to get the sustainable development. And it is a process for meeting human development goals while maintaining the ability of natural systems to cover by themselves. And what are the advantages of the proposal? And because it is a long-term oriented, not just focus on short-term like the economic development itself, it has taken consideration of the benefit of the next generation. And on balance, because there are many bad effects of the economic growth, and we have already put ourselves in danger because we just haven't cared too much about the environment. So I think the economic growth is not that important as the environmental issue. Thank you.
Thank you. And I now stand open for cross-examination and points of clarification. Say those words. Say I now.
And now I stand here for the cross-examination and
points of clarification.
Points of clarification.
Okay. Give her a nice round of applause. Tap your desk like they do in British parliamentary debate. Okay, would you come to the podium and engage in 3 minutes of cross-examination, please?
Hi, I'm Shevit.
Hi, Shevit.
First point of clarification. You mentioned that the World Health Organization reports that there's half a million deaths due to environmental concerns, environmental issues, how do your solutions effectively tackle this issue?
Yeah, there are a lot of deaths caused by the pollution all over the world, and I have mentioned in my solution to this problem that is sustainable development, which is when you develop something for the economy, you pay equal attention to the effect that it has on the environment. So if the factories, they have the social responsibility to reduce the bad effect, negative effect they have on the environment. This will be reduced or tackled.
Yep, you mentioned sustainable development, but a research by KPMG, the accounting firm International, in 2013 mentioned that environmental management efforts would cost up to 40% of corporate budget. How are you intending to get the necessary financial resources to deal with these environmental concerns with reduced emphasis on economic growth?
But I agree with the reliability of the research you have quoted, but it is also a requirement for the listed company in the UK and US to have a report of the social responsibility they have taken. And a very important part in the social responsibility is their responsibility for the environment.
So how do they get the resources to manage the environment?
The corporate have many ways of financing. They can issue bonds, and this year the bonds they issue related to environmental issues have counted for a lot. Yeah.
So you expect them to continue with their regular business and like constrict on economic growth yet expand their environmental efforts?
And I think they can also develop other ways that are more environmentally friendly. Yeah, if they are not so, if they do not do so many pollution to the environment, they will have less budget or less cost on such kind of issues related to the environment.
According to a report by The Guardian in 2014, companies like Coca-Cola have purposefully grown businesses while being environmental friendly, like sustainable.
Yeah.
So like improving water efficiency by up to 20%. Would not these efforts show that environmental concerns can be as important as economic growth?
One point of me is that the environmental issues should be paid equal attention like the growth in economy. Yeah, it's kind of equally important. We shouldn't ignore the environmental issues when you focus on the GDP of a country or the profit of a company.
So by that line of thought, you are saying that economic growth can be as important as environmental, or should be as important as environmental concerns. If not, we wouldn't have the resources it required to grow sustainably.
30 seconds.
Yeah, it should be at least equal important as the environmental issues, but it is more important. But it's actually more important than the economy issues, because without the environment, without the place or the planet you live on, what you have to develop the economy with.
You focus on us. You're trying to persuade us. Yeah.
But without the financial resources, how are we supposed to manage? Yes, environmental issues are important, but without the finance resources, how can we manage these issues?
That's time. Answer the question.
I have already suggested several ways for you to raise finance for corporations, such as the corporate bonds related to environmental issues. And it is a very common way for companies to raise money for the environmental issues to fulfill their corporate social responsibilities. And I think companies can also have shares related to the environmental issues.
Thank you. Okay, the chair will now recognize the leader of the opposition for his speech, for his opening speech, not to exceed 7 minutes in length. Hear, hear.
Hi everyone, I'm Shevin.
Hi, Shevin.
So, environmental concerns are not more important than economic growth. This proposition will be proposed as a policy debate case taken from a negative stance. So the word importance, the phrase more important is central to a resolution. It is near impossible to place a quantifiable number to define more important. As such, the term more important will be measured by the respective costs and benefits of both factors on society. This means that while there is no denying of the importance of environmental concerns, it is still imperative that we continue focusing on economic growth. Finally, as the negative, if I prove that environmental concerns are not more important than economic growth, I win the debate. So what is the problem? There is no denying that economic growth has its risk on damaging the environment and undesirable side effects. For example, in a report by The Guardian in 2015, in May 2015, the California oil spill could cause long-term damage and smoother ecosystems. Scientists say are highly concerned over the 11-mile pipeline leak, because you can never get it all out, and these are real damages. So while these numbers may seem alarming, there is in fact an over-exaggeration of the environmental damage caused by economic growth. But beyond that, the real problem is not about merely shrinking economic growth. In order to focus on environmental concerns, instead it should be about developing businesses and countries to be able to have enough resources to manage environmental concerns while pursuing economic growth. According to a report done by KPMG International in 2013, an accounting firm, there are high business costs involved in managing environmental issues. Environmental costs average of 40% of corporate earnings. At a time when economic growth is increasingly challenging, it is near impossible to simply compromise economic development in a naive hope that it will solve all environmental issues. Furthermore, there are some businesses who not only focus on economic growth but also help conserve the environment. A report in 2014 by The Guardian citing companies like Starbucks, PepsiCo, General Electric, for companies with strong accountability systems, board oversight, clear policies on human rights and environmental management, active stakeholder engagement and disclosure. Therefore, there is a problem with this statement when you say environmental concerns are more important than economic growth. So how big is this problem? Some believe there is a problem with economic growth because it damages the environment. But this problem is not a key issue because firstly, the data for environmental damage is over-exaggerated. Secondly, increased efforts have reduced environmental damage caused by businesses and nations. Over-exaggerated and inflated numbers of economic growth have been spreading all around. Firstly, in 2013, the Reuters reports 97% of scientists say that environmental issues are man-made and require urgent actions to change matter. However, in 2014, the Wall Street Journal reports that the assertion of 97% of scientists believing that climate change is man-made and an urgent problem is a fiction. Secondly, increased governmental efforts have reduced environmental damages caused by businesses and nations. The Reuters in 2013 reports the Obama's budget plan for fiscal 2014, which begins in October 1st, would boost clean tech spending by 40% over current levels. Since 2008, the United States has nearly doubled its energy generation from wind, solar, and other sources. Therefore, in an increasingly challenging socio-economic environment, coupled with undeniable need for monetary resources to deal with environmental challenge, it is imperative that there is a continual emphasis placed on growing the economy. So why do we have this problem? Firstly, there are irresponsible businesses causing environmental damage with their pursuit for economic growth. Giant Texas oil companies, as reported by New York Times in 2014, has agreed to pay $5.1 billion for polluting it with toxins.
3 left.
Secondly, poorer countries struggle to manage waste pollution because they simply lack the resources to do so. A report by Bloomberg in 2013 says the environmental impact of doing business costs the global economy $4.7 trillion a year. Thirdly, with any business operations, there will always be a natural risk of damaging the environment. So what is the solution? Firstly, it will be counterproductive to simply constrict the economic growth. But firstly, we need to support poorer countries with more resources like manpower and capital in order to help them manage environmental issues. Environmental protection budget for the respective year for the company should be pegged not to a fixed amount, but according to the growth of GDP. This way, as the economy grows, environmental efforts can also grow. Secondly, we need to set up an environmental enforcement authorities that fines and penalizes irresponsible businesses while providing financial subsidies to encourage businesses to go green. The money raised from penalizing irresponsible businesses will be used to repair and conserve the environment and also support enforcement activities. Finally, we need to develop further technologies to help businesses go green. So will this solution work? Yes, firstly because the solution does not simply constrict economic growth, but it deals with the core issue. The Reuters reports in 2013, Obama's budget plan for 2014 would boost clean tech spending by 40%. And since 2008, the United States has nearly doubled its energy generation. Similar financial support can be extended to businesses and other countries to effect similar change. Secondly, the enforcement authorities that penalizes bad businesses and rewards good businesses would over time create a culture that deters environmentally damaging businesses and encourage good business to grow responsibly. According to the White House in 2014, the administration secured more than $4 billion in private sector commitments and actions to scale up clean energy innovation and technologies that reduce carbon pollution, as reported in the White House in 2014. Finally, only with continual emphasis on economic growth we can garner resources required to develop better technology. In 2014, the White House reports that the President's Better Building Challenge enlisted more than 250 states and has generated more than 840 million. So what are the advantages? Firstly, we can not only manage environmental issues but also continue growing the economy in an environment-friendly way. Secondly, we would build a culture that deters irresponsible businesses while encouraging greener businesses to grow. Finally, only with economic growth that we will be able to develop new technologies to reduce undesirable effects. So on balance, what are ways? Fundamentally, economic concerns are not more important than economic growth. In an increasingly challenging economic world, it is completely counterproductive to manage environmental concerns by simply constricting economic growth. Secondly, it is proven that it is possible to grow the economy while still protecting the environment. This is done by creating a positive culture. Finally, it is of utmost importance that we continue to value the importance of economic growth because it would essentially enable us to deal with important environmental issues. Therefore, I have shown using cost and benefit analysis that environmental concerns are not more important than economic growth. I now stand open for cross-examination and points of clarification. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have said that the data were some information about the undesirable effects about the human behavior on the environment are exaggerated, are too much. But when you type global warming the keywords into Wikipedia, it says since 1870 until now, the sea levels have risen for 8 inches, and a lot of tiny islands have been flooded due to global warming. So can you deny that kind of fact?
My point would be that I would deny those kind of facts. When we type into media on social media, we see all these points about global warming. I would say that these are exaggerated by media. According to reports in 2014 by the Wall Street Journal, it clearly disproves the report which was done previously by Reuters in 2013. I say it again. In 2014, the Wall Street Journal reports that the assertion that 97% of scientists believe that climate change is man-made and an urgent problem is a fiction, highlighting that previous studies have contradicted by more reliable research. So I would say, yes, media is propagating this point about environmental concerns being really very serious right now, but there are research that proves otherwise.
Yeah, he has said that the media have over-exaggerating the current situation, but I disagree because if the problem is not so urgent or not so important, why do the media or the social networks pay so much attention on this kind of issue? Why don't they advertise something else?
In my points, I'm clearly saying that yes, it's over-exaggerated, and yes, environmental concerns are serious and it costs our world a huge amount. For example, in Bloomberg Business in 2013 reports that environmental impact of doing business cost the global economy 4.7 trillion a year, and that's a huge amount, I agree. And that's why all the more I think we should still continue to focus on economic growth. Only then will we have the resources to deal with the ever so important environmental concerns.
Okay, and in your brief, you have mentioned that the environmental costs or environmental related expenses that the corporate have paid are huge, and you didn't deny that the environmental issues is more important than this kind of economic growth.
I'm clearly denying that environmental issues are more important than economic growth. I can say that yes, it costs a high amount, and that's why we need economic growth to find the resources that we need to deal with the ever so important. So environmental concerns, yes, they are very important, but they are not more important than economic growth, because economic growth is still imperative for us to find the resources that we need to deal with these issues.
Okay, just like I have said.
That's time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it is now time for us to have refutation. And we're looking for the 4 steps of refutation. And we will first hear from the member of the affirmative.
No, negative.
Negative, excuse me. And then we'll hear from the affirmative, right? Negative, affirmative. We're flipping back and forth. Yeah. We're flipping back and forth, yeah. Okay. So you just got done speaking, so now it's your turn.
Oh, so now government.
Government, yes, excuse me, government.
Okay, so I shall do an.
You refute what he just said. Yeah, with the he said, I disagree because therefore. Remember? 4 steps of refutation.
He said that the environment.
And you have 4 minutes. Yes.
He said that the environmental issues are not that important as economic growth. I just cannot agree because there are evidence that the global average temperature have shown an increasing trend over decades, and the trend since 1979 that the land temperature are increasing about twice as fast as previous days. So it is very terrible trend if we just have do nothing about it. And he has mentioned that the clean energy project, and the reason for developing such kind of clean energy is that the corporate realized that the environment is very important and we have to protect the environment. So the companies develop such kind of energy to tackle this problem. Therefore, I think the environmental issues are more important than economic growth. Yeah. So,
That's it?
yeah, that's it.
Okay, great. 104. Thank you. All right, let's hear it for the affirmative. Negative, you have 4 minutes to refute her case and use any manner you want to bolster your own case, to prove to us the opposite, that economic growth is in fact equal or more important than environmental concerns. Thank you.
And for negative, and the main point that I want to say is that environmental concerns are not more important than economic growth. The opponent stated that the proposal of focusing mainly on environmental concerns benefits the society in the long term. I disagree with that because I believe that focusing both on environmental and economic issues is a more effective long-term plan, because the continual emphasis on economic growth enables countries and businesses to generate sufficient financial resources to deal with environmental issues in the future. Without the continual emphasis on economic growth, our efforts to manage environmental issues will be greatly stifled. Therefore, environmental concerns is not more important than economic growth, as economic growth is needed for us to continue managing the environmental issues effectively. The opponent stated that without a doubt, the advantages of saving the environment and encouraging sustainable development outweighs the disadvantages. I disagree with that because While saving the environment is important, growing the economy can be at times equally important. Environmental concerns are important, but it is imperative to continually focus on economic growth because it allows us to generate the necessary resources to go green. Therefore, environmental concerns is not more important than economic growth, because without the growth of the economy, it will be very difficult for countries and businesses to go green. And finally, the opponent stated that environmental concerns are more important than economy because the environment is very badly damaged and we have to pursue sustainable development. I disagree. While yes, the environment has been damaged, while the cost has been high, it is still imperative that we continue to pursue economic growth. Only then can we find the necessary resources to grow and to manage the environmental issues on a larger scale.
Two left.
I say that therefore, environmental concerns are not more than economic growth. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's give them a nice round of applause. You may stay in your seats now, and now we turn to the audience. It's now time for you to individually look over your notes and decide on a winner. Are environmental concerns more important than economic growth? If so, you'll vote for the government. If you have a doubt or you don't believe that proposition to be true, you'll vote for the opposition. So, make your decision. And after that, give them, should we get a scale of 30, right? Yeah, 30. On 100, on 100. On a scale of 100. On a scale of 100, rank them between, you know, the best speaker, give them something up, you know, and the second speaker, give them a score.
Out of 30?
Out of 100, I said. I changed my mind. Yeah. Use BP rules. And then, if you could, just jot down in notes a few things that you thought were pertinent, critical, and then we will mosey about the room and hear your reason for decision to help them grow and develop. Now it's time for you to decide. Once you've come to a decision and you've filled out your ballot, if you could please pass it to me, that would be excellent. You have to sign it too. You sign it legibly. If you don't have a, yeah, take the whole packet. You bring the packet to class. What?
Notes on the back.
Notes in the back? Yeah, that's okay having notes on the back.
Do you need our name on the top right? Or just the bottom side?
What?
Do you need our name on the top right?
No, sign it at the bottom where it says judge's signature.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. While you're waiting for Godot, can you collect the rest for me? Thank you. Time has come, the walrus said. Speak of other things. Thank you so much. All right, on a 1 to 9 decision, the ballot goes to the opposition. Let's start here. Stand up, say your name, say how you voted, and say something positive and something helpful to each of the debaters.
Hi, I'm Rosie.
Hi, Rosie.
Hi. I voted for the opposition. I want to say that it was a good presentation. You had good voice and good tone. The definitions were more important, was really great, and it was very clear, and I just appreciate how you presented that. And you talked about the companies and how they contributed to the economy, environmental issues. We also talked about how they're helping and they're going green, and they're encouraging the business to develop new technologies, so that was good. And it was helpful to hear that they can't go back in time and fix what happened in the past. They can only go forward and fix by contributing new technologies and ways of helping the environment. So that was a winning point for me. The only thing I think was negative was when he said you had 1 minute left. Instead of jumping to the conclusion, you kind of try to still say all your points. So I think that was the only downfall. But other than that, it was great. For the affirmative, I think you did great. You had great points as far as how the pollution affects the human life and the human health. So that was a good point. And how it's killing people. You had good points of solution. And your closing was very good. The only negative is that there was too many pauses in between everything, so it was hard to keep following because I got a little confused. And I couldn't understand the definitions at first because they seemed a little unclear, so I wasn't 100% sure what you meant by them. And I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, Rosie. Okay, yes, please.
Hi, I'm Austin.
Hi, Austin.
So I also gave it to the opposition. I guess I'll start with the government. So actually, I think you had a really good constructive case. So your points were really well made. You can work just a little bit on confidence when you're speaking. But yeah, I thought you actually did have a really strong case. Where a bit fell down was in cross-examination and refutation. I thought you did a really good job. And I said it's more of a testament to your ability than to your case being bad. Because I actually thought it was really good. You made really sound points and I enjoyed it. The opposition, I thought you did a fantastic job. Good speaking style, good points. Cross-examination, you did really well, except you got stumbled by one of your questions, which was actually, you asked about why would people be covering it if it wasn't a big deal, which I thought you could have easily shot down, but you didn't let that stumble you, and that took away a bit from the credibility. But besides that, I thought you did a great job with the reputation, a great job with your points, and overall it was a really good speech.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Annette.
Hi, Annette.
Hi. I gave it to the opposition as well. I thought, I was initially against your position, but I thought you were very confident in the way you presented your information, and you really stood by it, and it won me over, and you took a very logical approach, which I appreciated. The only negative that I kind of noticed was during the refutation and cross-examination, you sort of start to give her point a little bit more credibility, and like he said, kind of lost confidence in the case a little bit, but you jumped back to it really well, and it was very clear. For the affirmative, I thought you had very good points as well, and I liked that you took a nice kind of more emotional approach, and the garbage patch in the Pacific Ocean and all that is all very important. I would just say to me, be a little bit more clear on your evidence and the dates, and that's all.
Absolutely. Thank you. In the rear.
Hi, I'm Saya. You guys both did
Hi,
really
Kaya.
Saya with an S.
Hi, Saya.
You guys both did a really great job. I voted for the opposition, even though originally I came in with the bias of totally not agreeing with your side. I definitely loved all of your evidence. I feel like it appealed to me emotionally because you brought up children and their IQ points, like life, cancer, all the things that you really truly care about through humanitarian work. But I feel like maybe debate-wise, I wish that you sort of gave it a little bit more emphasis when you talked. I feel like that was something that sort of swayed me over to this.
You're talking to the government now,
Yeah.
right? Mm-hmm.
I feel like I wish you made more of a stance on every single piece of evidence rather than sort of naming them all, even though I know you were on a time constraint because the evidence was amazing. And then your evidence was really great too. I feel like your original, the entire, for the most part, most of it was really great. I agree with some people during the refutation. She kind of sort of made you stumble a little bit, but your points were great. Your speaking, your tone, everything was really strong and just sort of was so confident it won me over, even though I totally disagree with the position.
Thank you. Real quick editorial while the next person is standing up. That's you. I appreciate people saying, gosh, I walked into this room believing that environmental concerns are surely more important than economic growth, and yet when you heard them debated, you were fair-minded enough to agree that who won the debate and that sort of thing, that, you were fair-minded enough to put aside your own personal prior beliefs and let the debaters debate it.
Okay,
Yes,
hello.
please.
I'm Dora.
Hi, Dora.
I sided with the opposition. I thought that it was very strategically well planned, from the definition of more important to also the evidence that you chose. I thought the evidence you were using was a little bit narrow, but it was working with what you were trying to prove. And as long as it didn't really get questioned that much, it was really powerful in persuading me. And for the affirmative, I thought that there were many really good points about the effects of environmental destruction, but it wasn't really related to the economic growth specifically. So that's where
Yeah, that was the rub, wasn't it? Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Tiffany.
Hi, Tiffany.
I voted for the opposition too. Like everybody else said, I really liked your tone and your conviction. But I feel like she had really good questions when she was cross-examining you as well. And also, I feel like your point about how money is really important in fixing the environmental issues, that was a really good point. I feel like you should have focused more on that instead of saying, focusing on how the media exaggerates the climate change statistics and stuff, or if you're gonna go with that, then maybe cite more than just one like Wall Street Journal study. And then for the
Good.
affirmative, I really liked your evidence. I thought they were really convincing, and I really liked the questions that you posed during your cross-examination. And yeah, I just thought that, like everybody else said, maybe just like be more convincing with your tone, and maybe just a little more numbers, because it's like in a debate I feel like numbers really stand out, so like statistics would be nice maybe.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Tiffany. Yes, please. In the rear here. You move over so I can see them. Yeah. Slide over, all of you. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm Justin.
Hi, Justin.
I also sided with the opposition on this one. I thought that the opposition made a more substantial argument and supported it with like more hard facts and reasoning. I
Yeah.
also liked that he spoke of conviction and was able to get through like the main points of his argument, although he did rush toward the end. But I did find that maybe, even though you had a lot of well-supported facts, maybe you could have focused in on like the more important ones and stick to those, because it leaves you with a narrower arguments that you don't have to cover so much ground. And for the affirmative, I thought that you got through your argument pretty efficiently. Like, you didn't speak extremely quickly or anything, so we were able to digest your argument. But I felt that not just strictly numbers, but I wasn't convinced about your mechanism for internalizing the social costs. So you mentioned that there would be ways for the government to impose like economic ways to deal with social costs, but there wasn't really like a way to do it. And I think that's like the most pressing issue about this.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah. Yes, sir. Come this way a little bit now, please.
Alright. So I'll start with the government.
Can you step a little to your right, please? Yeah, good. Thank you.
I thought your argument was really good, very well structured. You built it up pretty well, but you lost me a few times because your tone wasn't as loud as I thought it should have been. You seemed to stumble a bit on the cross-examination with a few of the questions, but I like the emotional approach that you took. And for the negative, I thought you had a great tone, great delivery. The quote about the over-exaggeration, I felt that I wasn't really well supported because it just kind of came out of the blue. And you had great evidence, but I also felt like it was all over the place. Maybe if you would have stuck to a few points and just drove those in, they would have been better. But I also chose you. And then in the end, you were really rushed to finish up.
Yeah, I gave him the time signal, so he was trying to get it all in. Yes, please. Thank you, sir.
Hello, I'm Shira.
Hi, Shira.
Okay, so I'll start with the affirmative government.
How'd you say how you voted first?
Oh, I voted for the opposition.
Okay, thank
So
you.
I think what my biggest issue is that coming into this, I was actually on the negative side, so it probably took a little more to convince me. But my issue with your argument was that you didn't name the sources until the source that you did name was Wikipedia. So when you said in my Wikipedia, when you typed that in, it made me think, like, where did she get her other research? Like, it could be from really great sites, but, like, we didn't know about it. So then it was hard for me to verify, like, what you were saying, and that came in when the question was asked about, like, social media. Why is it so prevalent on social media? I think the example could have been, like, why is it so prevalent on the news, or something that's more reliable than, like, something I can post on Facebook when it doesn't matter what I think about global warming, because how am I qualified? But other than that, I think you did really good in the questioning. You stayed really strong. You repeatedly presented yourself, saying, I don't agree, what he's saying is wrong. And I think that's good. And I think you did a really good job with that. And then I think you won me over, not only because I was trying to keep an open mind, but your presentation was just really good. It kept me very interested. I liked your facts. And I actually thought you did well with the timing. I know that, like, in a lot of our presentations, some of us have been struggling with that. So it didn't seem to me like you were rushing at the end, so I thought that was good.
Good. Thank you. Yes, please. Can you slide to the right, please? Stand up for Jesus. Okay, good.
So I also chose the opposition.
You voted opposition, yes, thank you.
One good thing I liked about the opposition was the structure of the
Go that way a little,
argument.
you're right in her, yeah, right there is good. Good, stay right there, good.
I like the structure of your argument and the examples that you provided. And you were definitely clear with your argument, and you mentioned many times your points and also your position in the argument. What I would say that you can do better next time is keep track of your time so you won't be rushed at the end, and also say all the points that you have prepared. For the affirmative, your voice and speech were less passionate than the negative, which I think lost a few points there. But I think you had a good emotional appeal to the people, and that some of your points were very good. So overall, both speeches were great.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, please.
Hello. I also voted for the opposition, even though originally I agreed with you in your stance that environmental concerns are more important than economic growth. The reason why I chose opposition is because I like how he kind of emphasized that yes, environmental concerns are important, but economic growth is just as important. And you gave reasoning that said poor countries can't manage their environment because they do not have the economic resources to do that, so we need to help them. So I thought that was a really valid argument, and I just do think you kind of let her stump you on the cross-examination and refutation, but all of your points and your conviction that you spoke with really had an effect on my overall decision. And with you, I thought you did an awesome job. I really liked your emotional approach like everyone else. I liked how you said that how many people are getting cancer from this, and we need to think about future generations, our children, our grandchildren. I thought that was really effective. My only downside was that you also didn't provide that many citations and where you got your resources from, which I think is kind of like statistics and numbers is really important if you tell us where it's from, and then just have a little bit more change of tone, like Shevin, just so we know like really what you're emphasizing when you're
Great. Yeah, really good. Thank you, everyone. Let me make a couple of quick comments. While I'm doing that, if the next group could be walking to the front and putting your names on the board and the proposition. Let me just say a couple of things to you folks. I'll put the camera on you. First off, are you on our email list? Did you get emails from me? You don't. Okay, well that's the problem then. I sent an email out explaining how to do the brief and to have two pieces and cite your information orally when you give it, when you're speaking and things like that. So see me after class. I'll add you to my email list, so I'm sure you get future handouts and stuff, okay? But really, quickly, first off, your conceptual analysis, what you needed to do was to prove that environmental concerns are more important. And right away, I felt you were in trouble when you were saying, no, I can prove they're also equally important. And I thought, I don't think so. I don't think equally important is the same as more important, right? And so when he said, if you're saying they're equally important, or the opposite, that economic growth is more important than environmental concerns, then I win the debate because they're equally important, I win. Because you've got to prove they're more important. And the second part of your conceptual analysis, it's Jing, right? Yeah, the second part of your conceptual analysis is you were real good in saying the environment is in trouble. It really sucks. We're having problems. Now, granted, you didn't cite any evidence except for Wikipedia. You didn't cite it orally and stuff like that. You didn't say it aloud during the debate. What you didn't spend time on is the economic growth part of the resolution, saying why how economic growth is bad for the environmental concern. That's the second part of the resolution. So cite your evidence, fake your confidence until you get it, really stand and say I'm going to kick them dead until you really get it, act more confident. I agree your plan mechanism was a little vague. You had a good cross-ex. Everyone agrees you seem to have got him to stumble. And other than that, you came and got the job done, and I appreciate you debating. So thank you for that. On the opposition, yeah, I think you had a tough side, but you did a good job of defending it because, as you know, many, if not most people walking around on this campus really think that environmental concerns are more important than economic growth. So you have a little uphill battle. And as some of the people acknowledged, you know, I believed this before I started hearing the debate. But I think you persuaded people with your evidence cited and around otherwise. And yes, the Wall Street Journal would have been better if it was buttressed with some other stuff too. But the alarmists, as I call them, are really, you know, one question you didn't answer of hers that I thought was really telling is she said, why are they doing this? And you really fluffed that over. Why is the media doing this? And I think a piece of it is it sells papers and it's, you know, it's part of their thing. I actually thought your time allocation was pretty good once I gave you the sign. You did speak with conviction, and I think that you would make a good debate team member. I thought you were just really excellent. Yeah. So if you want to come on Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock, we'd love to have you. But you did a nice job. Thank you. Okay, do we have the next team up there? Oh, I don't see a new board. I don't see names. I don't see anything. Okay. Oh, I got to change the battery anyway. Hang on just a minute. Okay, you'll put the proposition up over there, and you'll put your name up here, and we'll all live happily ever after. Excuse me?
I'm assuming I'm still the government?
Yes, you'll be the government. He'll be your government?
Yep.
Yes, sir. Great. Okay, gotta change the battery.